they come.
Welcome back to another episode of Here They Come. I'm Kate Lockhart.
And I'm Paul Ramlow.
To kick things off, Paul, there's some big races coming up for older pacers later this month at Yonkers Raceway. The George Morton Levy Memorial Pacing Series is with an estimated purse of $1 million will get started, as will its companion event, the Blue Chip Matchmaker, with an estimated purse of $750,000.
This is one of the first series of note for older horses in North America during this season, Kate. Among the 52 nominees to the Levy are a couple of past champions. First off, there's Foiled Again, who was the winner in the $370,000 finale last year. And then there's Special Report, who won the Levy in 2008. And speaking of Yonkers Raceway, Nicole Kraft caught up with Yonkers General Manager Bob Galterio to talk about some of the latest happenings at the Hilltop Oval.
What's it been like there now that Yonkers, you've been there for so long as a racetrack, now you're there as a racino? What's that like for you as someone who's seen both sides of it?
Well, it's obviously nice because of the success we're seeing right now with the revenue that's coming in from the slot machines. But more importantly, what it's allowed us to do is to do some things in terms of the type of racing that we're putting on, the level of purses that we're distributing now, that really 10 years ago were unimaginable.
You made an interesting comment at the banquet about the relationship now between the horseman and the track, which hasn't always been the best, and certainly at other tracks it's not always the best. What's the secret to that kind of newfound success that you're having there?
And I think it's a testament to as I said the other night, the cooperation that we're seeing from everybody. We're not looking at each other in an adversarial way anymore. I mean, and we're not questioning the tactics that each other are taking, whether it be at the Racing and Wagering Board or up in Albany. And I just think it's maybe it's a maturation process of our management and the management of the SOA that just caused us to get on the same page.
How do you get those people to cross over from the slots to the racing scene?
If you come to the Racino that night and you go to our slot promotions booth, we'll give you 2 superfecta tickets for races that evening. And we did that before, and it was real successful. People loved it. You saw a lot of people going out on the apron to watch their race and to cheer on their horses. Racing is now an amenity to our facility. I mean, it's not the showcase that it once was. Those of us that are in racing think it's a showcase because of the improvement that we've seen in our product. But for the for the thousands of people that are coming for slot machines, it's an amenity. And what we need to do is we need to get them just to experience the sights and the sounds of harness racing out there on our racetrack. So we can get them to go out there and watch a race, and then hopefully get excited by it. Maybe bet on a horse here and there. I mean, for our Friday and Saturday nights in our dining room, we have a new group coming in, and it's young couples that are coming, together with other friends that we know are new to harness racing because they're not sure how to make bets when they go up to the windows.
Vito Casucci wanted to talk about the starting position of the races. He says going into the first turn, he calls that a huge advantage for the inside posts. Do you guys feel there's a need to level out the playing field, as he puts it?
Moving the finish line back a little bit further up the stretch which would cause the start line to also go further up the stretch, because it is an issue. And in fact, I just noticed that Maywood Park is doing what I think they're calling the quick start or something like that, where they're actually just letting the horses go further up the stretch, still timing them at the mile. And what's one of the things I'm going to talk to him about to see if they have any interest in maybe trying Maywood's quick start, which will alleviate the problem that Mr. Casucci was referring to.
Well, Bob, I can't thank you enough for your time and your insights. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Nicole, thank you very much. We appreciate your support and your interest in Yonkers.
Thanks, Bob. Speaking of New York tracks, there was some other big news recently where Tioga Downs decided to lower their takeout rates. It's interesting to see Tioga work directly with the Horse Players Association of North America to find out what it was their customers wanted from them, how they could increase handle at the track. And it was clear from a survey that Hannah did of their members, it was made clear to Jason Settlemware that the track needed to lower their takeout rate to try to increase the handle.
Yeah, specifically, they're looking at dropping the win play show takeout rate from 18% to 15%. They'll drop the exactas and doubles from 20% to 17%, and the 25% for all other exotics will be dropped to 21%. Leave it to Jeff Gorell, Jason Settlemoyer, and the folks out there. They always try new things. They always have the customers in mind. I think it's very interesting that they're willing to take chances where a lot of other tracks in the industry may not. So kudos to Tioga for once again trying to do something a little bit different in the harness racing sport.
Well, one of the most recognizable names in harness racing is back on the track in Pennsylvania. The 2005 Hambletonian winner, Vivid Photo, who's won over $3 million in his career, is back racing for owners Roger Hammer and Todd Shadle.
Yeah, Hammer told HRC's Ken Weingartner earlier this week that he doesn't plan to race Vivid Photo in stakes this year, but will just keep him in the open trots. Vivid Photo, who can forget his Hambletonian victory in 2005, a horse that cut his teeth on the Pennsylvania fairs, wins on harness racing's biggest stage. Vivid Photo's been just one of my favorite horses over the past several years. It's great to see him back on the track, and Roger says he thinks the horse is a little bit healthier than he was in the last couple of years, and that means it should be a super season for Vivid Photo.
In breeding news, it was announced this week that Perretti Farms, and associated with Lindy Farms of Connecticut, has acquired a substantial interest in Lucky Chucky, and that they'll be standing the horse at their farm at the end of his racing career.
Yeah, Lucky Chucky, the defending Dan Patch 2-year-old trotting colt champion, marks the second champion that has stallion plans already announced. Back in January, Southwind Farms acquired a substantial interest in 2-year-old pacing colt Dan Patch champion Sports Rider.
Yeah, Paul, it seems like this is happening more often, that we see breeders getting involved in horses' careers before they've even stopped racing. Is that really the case, that it's happening more frequently, or is that just my imagination?
No, I think you are right, Kate. With so much money out there in the sport now, with slots in rich states, I think breeders are looking to tie up the next super sire, at least in their mind, prior to his 3-year-old year. Southwind Farms did it last year with Muscle Hill, and now this year with Sports Rider. I think it's an interesting dynamic because the breeders are taking a bit of a chance, because you never know if that great 2-year-old is going to come back as a 3-year-old. But if he turns out to be a Muscle Hill, then they've tied up a very good deal, and I think you're going to see more of it in the future. I really do. And now it's time for this week's episode of the Hollywood Minute with Bob Hollywood Heyden and Nicole Kraft, brought to you by Hoofbeats Magazine, reporting with horsepower.
Well, Holly, it's always great to talk with you. I was listening to Kate and Paul earlier. They were talking about some great trotters. Had Vivid Photo and Lucky Chucky. We got another great trotter that's getting ready to come back to the races.
Yeah, and that's Lucky Jim, coming off an unbelievable year last year. You know, he had such an amazing run last year, 14 out of 14 at the Meadowlands, 17 for 18 on the year. Keep in mind, he was winless as a 3-year-old, joined Julie and Andy Miller's barn, and had that incredible $1 million season last year. His 17 wins on the year, that's the most wins of any horse in the top 50 in earnings. Now, he's the third horse in history to have a 150-1, but he's the first one to come back and race the next year. In 3 years of racing, he's had 3 different trainers. 7 different drivers have handled him, starting with Dave Pallone, ending with Dave Miller. And remember, he raced against some of the division's best as a sophomore. Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe, In Focus, Crazed, Clerk Magistrate, those kind of horses. So Lucky Jim is coming back. He qualified a ton, and he's the 4th gelding in history to have a $1 million season. Mr. Muscleman, Magician, Fool's Gold, now Lucky Jim. And he's going to try to join this fancy company, Moneymaker and Varenne, as the only 3 trotters to have back-to-back $1 million seasons. Let's see if he can do it. Certainly something to look forward to. He's a couple wins away from the Meadowlands record for consecutive wins if he can get to 17.
Well, we certainly hope so. We didn't get a reader question for you this week, Bob, so I'm going to ask you one and see how you do. It's kind of a softball. You know, of course, Lucky Chucky was named the 2-year-old divisional champion for Chuck Sylvester this year. Who was the last 2-year-old divisional champion that Chuck Sylvester trained?
I believe that was Muscles Yankee in '97.
And unfortunately, that is not correct.
That's not correct.
It was not. He actually, Muscles Yankee that year jumped it off in quite a few of the finals. And so he did not win the division, but Mac Lobel did in 1986. And that was the last freshman champion that he had.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to see that Campbell and Chuck go from Mac Lobel to Muscles Yankee to Lucky Chucky 23, 24 years apart. So 2 of the great names in racing are still at it.
You said it. All right, have a great week, Bob.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Bob. This weekend, the Board of Directors of the U.S. Trotting Association is going to hold its annual meeting in Columbus, Ohio.
That's right, Kate. 3 days of meetings beginning on Saturday, March 20th. Among the items on the agenda, the board will consider proposed rule changes. They'll confirm the association's operating budget, hear reports from USTA staff, and listen to presentations from a number of speakers. As always, all USTA meetings are open to members of the association if you're in the Columbus, Ohio area. If not, join the USTA website where we will feature extensive coverage of the proceedings, including daily video reports done by John Pavlak.
That's right. And because of that board meeting and the special report from John Pavlak's Ion Harness Racing, we're going to be on hiatus next week. So you'll have to look back for us in 2 weeks, but in the meantime, enjoy John's report from the Board of Directors meeting.
Well, that wraps up this week's episode of Here They Come. I'd like to thank Bob Galterio, Bob Hollywood Heyden, Nicole Kraft, and the man at the controls, Rich Johnston. I'm Paul Ramlow.
And I'm Kate Lockhart.
We'll see you in 2 weeks for another episode of Here They Come.